Is it officially time for the Red Sox to part ways with Chris Sale? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, with Craig Breslow taking over as CBO. One of the big things that he's mentioned and what most people assume he's going to be focusing on is a revamp of the way the Red Sox look at pitching. Whether that's through acquisition or through development within their organization, the Red Sox should have a whole new outlook on the way they go about pitching, which means for the Major League club, hopefully in 2024, there are going to be some new faces in the rotation, in the bullpen, and in the dugout that could help the Red Sox get some really quality innings out of their pitching staff. But the big question for today's video is, where does Chris Sale fit in with all of this? That's what we're going to try and determine today. We are going to be looking at Chris Sale and what his role could be on the 2024 Red Sox. Plus, we're also going to be talking about whether or not it makes sense for the Red Sox to look into trading Chris Sale and open up some room in this roster. But before we get into that, for those of you who may not know, November is National Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, which is a cause very close to me, and because of this, we are partnering with Movember to hopefully bring some awareness to men's mental health. Movember is an organization dedicated to bringing men's health services to men within the US and around the world as well, and we as a channel have set up a goal to raise $500 in order to support Movember, which can be seen in the link in the description below. For every dollar donated for you guys up to $250, I will be matching your donations. On top of that too, I am also going to be growing out the hideous mustache known to man until this goal is reached or we hit the end of November. And if getting rid of this hideous mustache isn't incentive enough, every person who donates on this channel will be entered to win some pretty sweet Red Seat merch. So if you want to help the cause and help us reach our goal of generating $500 for Movember and men's health both nationwide and worldwide as well, click the link in the description below to get started. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Chris Sale has been a staple on this Red Sox team for a pretty decent amount of time now, both for some extremely great reasons, but also for some bad reasons as well. 2023 was sort of a perfect mix of that. Chris Sale finished the 2023 season with a 4.30 ERA and 20 starts with a bit of a lower 3.80 FIP, which felt more like the way he pitched this season. It was more towards that 3.80 number as opposed to that 4.30 number, and he still had that really high strikeout per 9 at 11 with a pretty decent walk rate at 2.5, leading to an above average 106 ERA plus, about 6% above the league average production when it comes to starting pitching. Chris Sale is entering the last year of his contract before he reaches 2025, which is a club option for the Boston Red Sox. Now, the Boston Red Sox hopefully are not going to pick up that 2025 option. After 2024, Chris Sale is more than likely to become a free agent. But what if the Red Sox want to move on faster than that? What if they want to get rid of Chris Sale now to open up some space? Would it make sense to trade Chris Sale? And if they don't, what will his role be on the Red Sox, and does he have any value there? When we're looking at trading Chris Sale specifically, there are a couple of factors that may be standing in the way. The first is Chris Sale's obvious bigger salary, right? In 2024, he's going to have about $25,600,000 towards the luxury tax. Then obviously you have his health as well. Chris Sale did make 20 starts in 2023, which is the most since 2019, but that's still not a full season, right? He still spent 60 days on the IL, missing what would probably have been 12 or 13 starts. And on top of that too, when he was healthy this season, he had a lot of ups and downs. All of this combined makes Chris Sale's value fairly low on the trade market. Now, what this means for the Red Sox is they essentially have two options if they're looking at trading Chris Sale. The first would be eating most of Chris Sale's salary, paying him to play for someone else, attaching a few prospects to Chris Sale, and trying to get something even remotely valuable back in return. The second option, on the other hand, would be to allow another team to take most of Chris Sale's salary, a large majority of it, if not all of it, and get essentially nothing back in return aside from an open rotation spot and money off the books that they can then allocate to other areas. And in my opinion, if you're looking at trading Chris Sale, the second one makes a lot more sense, right? In my opinion, make a ton of sense to trade Chris Sale and pay him to play for someone else while also giving up the prospects you would have to give up to get something even remotely valuable in return. So if the Red Sox are looking at trading Chris Sale, in my opinion, has to be simply to take away his salary from the luxury tax, as well as open up a spot in the rotation, which you can then allocate to other players, right? Maybe a trade Chris Sale, have someone take that salary, and then go out and get a top of the rotation guy, right? That, in my opinion, is the way you trade Chris Sale. But there's also another sort of wrench in this plan for the Boston Red Sox, and that is that Chris Sale has a no trade clause. If the Red Sox do want to trade Chris Sale's going to have to approve every single trade submitted to him before they can actually get it done, making it even more difficult to trade Chris Sale from the Boston Red Sox. So if it is difficult to trade Chris Sale, what's the other option, right? If they don't want to go through the hassle of trading him, what would he look like on this 2024 roster? Well, if the Red Sox do everything that they've wanted to do this offseason and they come into 2024 with two guys at the top of this rotation who are going to be your number one and number two, Chris Sale suddenly starts to have a lot more value than he's had over the last couple of years. Because for the last couple of years, what the Red Sox have relied on for Chris Sale is to be that top of the rotation guy, right? It felt like in 22 and 21 that we were sort of just waiting on Chris Sale to come back and be that ace caliber pitcher that we knew to really sort of set this Red Sox team in the right direction. It never really happened, and in 2023, when he was healthy, he had a lot of ups and downs. But if Chris Sale was a 4 or a 5 in this rotation, suddenly that becomes a much different conversation, because you're no longer relying on him to anchor this rotation. What you were relying on him to do is give you everything he can give you, make as many starts as he can make, and provide value in the back end of the rotation, and suddenly your rotation looks a whole lot better, right? Imagine going into a 2024 season where you've got an ace caliber pitcher, a solid number 2, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, and then a combination of Chris Sale and Nick Pivetta in the 5th spot, maybe trading off every other start. Suddenly this rotation looks a lot more rounded, and you're getting in the back end of this rotation a guy in Chris Sale who at any point can essentially just turn it on and become that ace caliber pitcher that we know and love. That's a lot of value for Chris Sale, right? So if we're trying to determine if the Red Sox don't trade him, what his role on the 2024 Red Sox would be, it has to be in the back end of the rotation type role. If the Red Sox go into 2024 assuming Chris Sale will be able to make a full season start like they have in the last couple of years and want him at the top of this rotation, that's a really big problem, right? There's a big difference between him being the opening day starter and him being the ace of the Boston Red Sox, which you flat out cannot rely on anymore. So if the Red Sox deem it too difficult to trade Chris Sale, there is still some value there. And again, you're not attached to Chris Sale for very long, considering after 2024, you've got that club option. So realistically, you only have Chris Sale under contract for 1 more year. So again, we're looking at the problem of whether or not to trade Chris Sale unless a team comes in here and says, look, we are willing to take almost the entirety of Chris Sale's contract. And the Red Sox look at that and say, okay, if we give up Chris Sale, we can use that money that we're saving to go out and really go head over heels for a Yamamoto, a Nola, a Snell, a Montgomery. And then we can sort of trade in a guy like Burns, Cease, because we didn't have to give up those prospects to get something in return for Chris Sale, right? That's the only way that Chris Sale makes sense to be traded right now. On top of that, is it even possible to trade Chris Sale, right? Is there a team out there that would be willing to take the chance that Chris Sale is healthy and has a decent season enough to make the money that you are paying him worth it? And that's the big question here, in my opinion, when you're looking at trading Chris Sale, right? If no one is willing to take a majority or all of his contract, again, the trade becomes essentially worthless. Now, we did hear rumblings that last year or the year before, I can't remember exactly which one, I think it was 2022, there was a team that was willing to take on Chris Sale's contract to add him to this rotation in hopes that he would remain healthy. So it's not impossible. It's extremely unlikely, in my opinion, that a team's going to want to take over Chris Sale's salary, but it's certainly not impossible. And again, the Red Sox, if they do everything that they are planning on doing during the 2024 offseason, which they better, right? They better do that and better themselves going into 2024. Chris Sale doesn't really become a guy that you have to get rid of. He could be a valuable player in the back end of that rotation. So in my opinion, when we're looking at the prospect of trading Chris Sale, I say hold on to him. I say unless someone blows you away and takes a majority of his contract, it doesn't make a ton of sense to pay someone else to pitch Chris Sale and also give up prospects on top of that. It just doesn't make sense, especially, again, if Chris Sale is in that back end of your rotation and he does have some value that he can give you both on the field and off the field. But if you do get that offer, it would make sense in my mind to get rid of that contract because you're probably not going to bring him back after 2024 unless it's in a $1, $2, $3, $4 million capacity, which I don't think is going to happen. So will the Red Sox trade Chris Sale? Probably not. Should they trade Chris Sale? Well, that depends on what they do this offseason, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? What do you think of the prospect of trading Chris Sale? What would you trade him away for? Is he valuable enough to stay on the Boston Red Sox in 2024? What are your thoughts on the Red Sox trading Chris Sale? Let me know in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.